Well, I am real happy to bring on today's guest. As host of the popular Great Work Insights podcast, weekly contributor to Forbes.com, Inc.com, director for the OC Tanner Institute, and co author of the brand new book Appreciate, Todd Nordstrom's career is full of insight based on thousands of in depth interviews from around the globe. He has spoken to a wide range of audiences, from introducing rock bands in arenas to countless on air interviews with C suite leaders from a wide number of industries to all types of executives attending conferences around the world. The brand new book is Appreciate, Celebrating People, Inspiring Greatness. It's available on Amazon and everywhere else fine books are sold. With that, welcome Todd to the ExecuNet stage. They are all yours.
Oh, Tony, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. We're going to have a lot of fun today, and I want to mention before we even get going that this conversation is extremely timely. If you're leaders out there, I want to remind you that tomorrow is National Employee Appreciation Day. So we're sliding right in at the last second. Hopefully, we'll give you some tips on how to inspire greatness in your people, and hopefully teach you some things about yourself as a leader and how you got to where you are today. That's always kind of a secret giveaway in this conversation. But let's get started. During my time researching for the book Appreciate, I've been all over the world. I've talked to literally thousands and thousands of people in every walk of life, at every level of an organization. And my co-authors and I would always come back and say, what question do you get answered the most when you're out there talking to people? And it's not always these words exactly, but it's some version of this. As a leader, how do I inspire people? Now, to other leaders, inspiration might seem like a far reach. To many leaders, they might be asking, how do I simply make people care? That's a big question. Especially as all of us go through our careers going, okay, we're hiring the best. We're looking at the resumes. We're calling those resumes, and we think that we're hiring a rock star. You know what it feels like when you get that resume and you think this person is going to be fantastic. And then for some reason, they're not. And you say, how do I inspire them? Well, I want to start today's presentation with not a story about rock star employees, because that's actually kind of easy. Everything we cover today will get you to that rock star employee. But I want to start on the opposite spectrum. I want to start with unhireable employees. This building is in San Francisco. It overlooks the waterfront, a stretch of waterfront called the Embarcadero. If you were to go down the road to the left of the screen, you would run into Giant Stadium. If you were to go to the right of the screen, you would bump into the Wharf, the biggest tourist destination in San Francisco. Now, as you can imagine, this is a high-end piece of real estate. And if you were walking past this building, you would probably think it's high-end condos. You can't see it in this photo because I'm not that great of a photographer, but all the flowers are perfectly groomed in the flower pots. They hang outside the windows. And this complex takes up an entire city block. These aren't high-end condos. This is a halfway house. It actually serves as a correctional facility for felons. It's called the Delancey Street Organization. In it are a restaurant. There's a moving company, an auto repair company, and some smaller other businesses. This complex, there's about 300 so residents living here. And there's one employee, the founder. Now, my co-author and I were in San Francisco, and we thought we want to go find out more about this place because it's very interesting. Unlike other correctional facilities, this is locked to the outside world, but anyone can leave whenever they choose. Again, and I mentioned, there's only one employee. All of the residents at Delancey Street run Delancey Street. So we knock on the door one day, and they welcome us in. And Mimi, the founder, was busy at the moment, but they said, we're going to hire or send somebody else to give you guys a tour. This is great, we thought. So we get pulled off into this little holding room, and within minutes, a man shows up. For the sake of today's presentation, I'm going to call him Jack. Jack is wearing a three-piece suit. He's perfectly groomed. He's extremely well-spoken. Jack proceeds to give us a tour. He tells us about how Delancey Street Foundation works. He tells us about how residents, when they come into the system, the jobs they have to take on within the organization, how they move up throughout the organization, and what the process is. Jack takes us through the entire facility, and we end up at the end of the tour up on this balcony up at the top there. We're overlooking the water. The sun is perfectly shining in our faces. And Jack, after telling me all this information, looks at me and he says, "Todd, I never believed that I would be living like this." And I said, "What do you mean?" Well, Jack was a resident of Delancey Street. So he went on to tell me how he had been in and out of the prison system his entire life. In fact, I learned later that he was one of the most violent residents that had ever lived in Delancey Street. He ran with gangs. Now, Jack didn't tell me why he was serving time, but I asked him how he ended up at Delancey Street. And he said, "Well, it's interesting. I got lucky." I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "I was at my hearing, my sentencing hearing, and I was supposed to be going away for 8 years. But I knew if I could get a judge to put me in Delancey Street, I'd only have to serve 2 years." His judge, Jack's judge, got sick that day, and another judge, a big fan of Delancey Street, stepped into his place. So Jack was thrilled, and he said, "I can play the game. I can work the system. I can go through Delancey Street. I'll be pretending, but it's 2 years instead of 8 years." And he said, "And Todd, I got in." And I said, "Well, good for you." I said, "So how long have you been here?" And Jack looked at me and he said, 9 years. I said, 9 years? What happened? And he goes, "Well, you have to petition to stay in Delancey Street. Petition your fellow residents." And he said, "I wasn't ready to leave." And I said, "Oh, were you scared that you would fall back into the same patterns, same groups, same friends?" And he said, "No." He said, "Actually, it was something more profound." He said, "I woke up one morning and I realized that here at Delancey Street was the first time in my life that I felt necessary." Think about that for a second. It's hard for any of us to imagine what it feels like to be completely unnecessary. We have families, we have friends, we have jobs. If you're unnecessary at work, most likely you're not going to be around for very long. But what does feeling necessary mean at work? How does that relate to the common human emotion of being needed? It's appreciation. It's feeling appreciated. In fact, 79% of people who quit their jobs, research says that they cite lack of appreciation.